I transmigrated into a book, transmigrated into a maid in the mansion of the female protagonist of the novel Sick Girl. It wasn't even directly described in the entire book. The only time I appeared was when the Lin family was exterminated. I lay on the ground to join the number of maids in the mansion. Ever since I transmigrated here, I knew this day would come. When the Chi Prince's mansion led people to massacre the Lin family, I originally planned to lie down on the ground and pretend to be dead, waiting for the Chi people to leave so I could escape. When I woke up this morning, I had already packed up everything I had accumulated over the years in the Lin mansion and hidden it on my body, changing into a clean set of clothes. When the Chi Prince's mansion's people rushed in, I took advantage of the chaos to lie down on the ground, conveniently smearing tomato sauce on my neck. As long as I could pass this level, after the extermination was over, a passerby like me, Jia, would have nothing to worry about anymore. But no matter how carefully I calculated, I never expected that at the most crucial moment, the variable would be Chi Wang, the sickly male protagonist of this novel. Perhaps because I was dressed too neatly and cleanly today, when Chi Wang passed by, he suddenly stopped. I was originally not good at holding my breath, and his stopping almost caused me to suffocate and suffer internal injuries. Closing my eyes tightly, I could feel the man standing next to me slowly bending down. His cold breath was like the air gradually approaching me. I thought he had seen through my fake death, so nervous that my face was as pale as ashes. No need to put on makeup. I am a transmigrator, not a real maid of this mansion. I don't want to die in this hellish place. The King of Chi was still approaching, just when I couldn't hold my breath any longer and was about to desperately open my mouth to breathe. He squatted down beside me, picked up the corner of my skirt, and slowly used my clean skirt as a towel to wipe his shiny sword. Ning Kingdom had entered winter. It was snowing today, the weather was cold and the ground was freezing. Lying on the ground for a while made my whole body stiffen from the cold. He lifted up my skirt. I almost trembled right under his eyelids. King Chi still hadn't left. After wiping the sword, he raised his hand to tear the hem of my skirt. I was so angry and embarrassed that I almost jumped up and pointed at his nose and cursed. Even wanting to humiliate a corpse, was this something a normal person would do? At this moment, the fire in my chest burned fiercely, but after tearing a piece of cloth from my skirt, King Chi only used it to wipe the blood on my face. Me. Sorry, I'm guilty, it's my mind that's dirty. A cold wind blew by, the tip of my nose suddenly itched. Before my strong willpower could take effect, a sneeze suddenly burst out. Ack! Snow was still falling. The sounds of fierce killing and chaos echoed in my ears. I lay stiffly on the ground, not knowing if King Chi had heard my sneeze just now. For a moment I didn't know how to react. After a few seconds of consideration, I decided to stay put and wait to see his next move before dealing with him. The massacre at the Lin mansion was almost over. Perhaps Minister Lin had predicted this day, so he had sent someone to take the female lead Lin Shiwei away before the Chi Wang mansion arrived. Out of the hundreds of people in the Lin mansion, after this massacre, only the female lead and I were still alive. The King of Chi just stood beside me, still not making any movements, nor did he use a sword to cut my neck to let me completely out of character. I heard footsteps passing by my ear. It must be the people from the King of Chi's mansion retreating. As a passerby, my part in the story should have ended here. Who would have thought that after everyone else had left, the King of Chi grabbed me who was lying on the ground and lifted me up? Me? Hey, brother, did you get the plot wrong? I'm just a passerby. You're intentionally adding more roles for me. The novel I transmigrated into was a sick and twisted story. Because of Lin Shiwei's father, the male lead lost his beloved maternal grandfather and concubine at a young age, suffering all kinds of humiliation in the palace at the hands of the other princes. Eating scum, being whipped, being locked in an abandoned house with snakes crawling on him, almost having his legs crippled just because he stepped on the crown prince's cat. Later, thanks to his outstanding intelligence, he won a bit of favor from the emperor. With power in his hands, the first thing he did was to destroy the entire Lamb family to avenge his blood feud. The plot between the male and female leads continued to entangle, love and hate intertwined, full of drama. But that was their story. What did a supporting role like me have to do with it? The plot was clearly finished. I should have been able to withdraw with peace of mind. Male lead, what do you mean by suddenly changing the direction like this? The King of Chi casually picked me up, then threw me straight behind him like someone would throw a chicken. No, to be more precise, like a sack. My hands were tied tightly, my whole body lying horizontally on the back of his horse. Every step the horse took rhythmically clack-clack on the street, I just wanted to vomit on the spot. The cold wind blew against my face, my cheeks hurt as if they were being cut by a knife. The horse ran for 10 miles through the streets, and finally I was brought back to the King of Chi's mansion. He threw me into an abandoned firewood storage room, then bent down, looked straight at me and asked, "Tell me, where is Lin Shiwei?" In his hand, he leisurely twirled the dagger, his tone was indifferent as if he was asking about the wind and clouds. I was just a supporting character, never served by the female lead. How could I know where Minister Lin had hidden Lin Shiwei? This matter, I really didn't know. When reading books, this matter wasn't described in detail. But even though I didn't know, I still understood one thing clearly: I couldn't answer "I don't know" in front of him. If I said that, I would definitely be thrown to the fish in his mansion's lake to eat immediately. After thinking carefully, I had no choice but to answer carefully, following the logic in the book. The Lin family is in great trouble. If the prince doesn't go find the young lady will definitely come to seek revenge herself. Instead of searching in vain, why not wait for her to fall into the trap herself? The King of Chi didn't understand Lin Shiwei's personality, nor did he know if she had the courage to barge into the King of Chi's mansion. But seeing me speak so firmly, he nodded in agreement. In his eyes, I was probably the only person alive who knew the female lead. Thinking of this, he threw the dagger aside, stood up and coldly said, "If she doesn't come, you can just wait to be food for the fish in the lake." After he finished speaking, he left the room. His words, on the contrary, made me feel more at ease. I had read the story, knew the next plot, and was certain that Lin Shiwei would definitely come. This way, my life was temporarily saved. The King of Chi kept me in the mansion, and every day I counted down the time, while calculating a plan to escape. I knew clearly that the day Lin Shiwei appeared was also the day I lost my value. Before he could make a move, I had to run away. However, I waited and waited, day after day, calculating the time, but still saw no trace of Lin Shiwei. Even the whole mansion didn't hear any news related to her. What was going on? Where did the plot go wrong? The current development has completely gone beyond my control. Didn't they say that the plot is irresistible? I began to suspect that I had been fooled by those sweet-talking transmigration novels online. With King Chi's cruelty, if Lin Shiwei really didn't appear, I didn't dare imagine how miserable I would die. In just a split second, my head had thought of 100 strange ways to die, none of which were more pleasant than the others. Just imagining that scene, my spine turned cold, a chill ran through my entire body. I touched my neck, it was still intact. I immediately made up my mind to speed up my escape plan. I had to leave this hellish place immediately. The firewood storage room I was locked in was located in a very hidden corner of the mansion. This was a stroke of luck. Even luckier, since the day Chi Chingshi threw me in here, he had never appeared again. After a few days of secret observation, I realized that not many people passed by this area, and even less servants dared to come near. Heaven help, earth help, now only I can help myself. I quickly rushed to the door, put my hand through the gap, groping to find a way to open the lock from the outside. But I touched left, touched right, fumbled for a while but could not find a way. While I was waving my hand like a dance, groping to the point of almost despair, a teasing voice rang out right next to the door. "Oh, what a beautiful little hand." Me. Did I just get teased by a character in a story? Right after the sentence, a handsome face like jade suddenly appeared through the crack of the door, looking at me with eyes full of interest. The person outside looked at me attentively, his eyes flashing with interest. Committed a mistake and was locked here to be punished? Looking at my maid's appearance, he arbitrarily concluded. I didn't know who he was, but I quickly realized that this person was the only hope for me to escape this place. I immediately put on a pitiful expression, my voice weak. "This servant has been starved for many days. If this continues, I'm afraid I won't survive." "Young master, can you help this servant?" Actually, since entering the Qi Wang Palace, I had never gone hungry. With my value still there, Qi Qingxi would not let me die. But perhaps my dirty, pale face, combined with my miserable eyes, made the person outside believe his words. Not only did he believe it, but he also happily opened the door and saved me. He was even kind enough to run and get me some breakfast, smiling and saying, "You look so pitiful, eat up. It would be a waste to starve with such a pretty face." I sat there, holding the breakfast tray, staring at him. Who was this person? Did he really save me? Or was this another twisted plot twist? He kindly opened the door for me. Not only that, he also ran to the kitchen to get a portion of snacks and placed it in front of me, his tone full of pity. "Look at your pitiful appearance, eat. Such a beautiful face, it would be a pity to starve to death." He squatted down, his eyes filled with concern, but he had no intention of leaving. If he didn't leave, how could I run away? Holding the snack in my hand, I suddenly felt no longer appetizing. While thinking of a way to chase him away, he suddenly spoke up. "You see, this Qi Wang Palace is not worth living in at all. Treating the servants so harshly, why don't you come with me?" He smiled, his eyes shining. But in my eyes, that smile was exactly like a human trafficker seducing an innocent young girl. Before I could respond, a low, murderous voice rang out between the two of us. "Yuan Yi, are you planning to kidnap the servants in my palace?" Yuan Yi? I was stunned, turned to look at the man sitting next to me, unable to believe my ears. The person sitting here, smiling like a rich kid, was the deep, gentle male lead, like the spring breeze in the book, Ngwendike. I felt something was wrong here, but couldn't say it clearly. It seemed like the person in front of me wasn't the original. But I had no proof. Just a servant, why would he do that? Ngwendike chuckled, reaching out to put his hand on my shoulder. But before his hand could touch it, a leaf flew over like a blade, making a small cut on the back of his hand. He painfully pulled his hand back, and I was pulled towards him by Qi Qingxi, shielding behind my back. "Your Highness." Yuan Yi looked at Qi Qingxi in surprise, unable to believe that he would attack me for a servant. But only I understood, Qi Qingxi, a sickly male lead, how could he bear to have his things touched by someone else? "Wait, what do you mean his things? I was just a supporting character, not his female lead." I silently cursed myself for thinking wrongly, and couldn't help but wonder, "Male lead, what did you just do?" Raising my head to look at Qi Qingxi, I unconsciously showed the same expression as Yuan Yi, so surprised that I didn't know what to say. Qi Qingxi coldly glanced at Yuan Yi, opening his mouth with an overwhelming air of a tyrant. "In the Qi Wangfu, there are people from the Qi Wangfu. If you want to take my people away, shouldn't you ask me first?" I was secretly hoping that Yuan Yi would strongly refute a sentence, but unexpectedly, he only thought for a moment, then nodded in agreement as if he found Qi Qingxi's words completely reasonable. "Me? Young Master Yuan, where did your male supporting character's aura go?" In the novel, the Yuan family was an important ally of Qi Qingxi on the path to power and throne, strong enough to confront him. I looked at Yuan Yi in disappointment, but immediately after, what he said next made me feel a glimmer of hope to escape. Yuani looked straight at Qi, calmly saying, "So now that you're here, it can be considered that you know what happened. Can I take her away?" A turn of the wheel that made me not know whether to laugh or cry. Yuani turned out to be a genius at debating. His words had no flaws, openly taking me away in front of Qi. How could it be called hiding? But Qi curled his lips, his eyes cold. "Do I agree?" As soon as he finished speaking, he pulled me back, as if asserting his sovereignty. The hope that had just flashed in my heart was completely extinguished by his action. Well then, from the moment he appeared here, I knew that my escape plan was just a pipe dream. Perhaps, before the female lead appeared, I could only quietly take each step carefully. Yuani still hadn't given up, smiling and saying, "Don't be like that, she's just a maid. How much is her contract to sell herself? I'll buy her back, the Yuan family doesn't lack silver." Qi replied indifferently, his voice carrying a tone of absolute refusal, "I won't sell her for even 1,000 gold coins." After he finished speaking, he didn't care about Yuani, who was standing there in a daze, and forcefully pulled me towards his courtyard. I was dragged away, feeling both upset and helpless. "Young Master Yuan, why did you fail so miserably? Male lead, why did you drag me back? I'm just a supporting role." As if he was afraid that Yuani would come and take me away again, Qi resolutely moved me to a new room, right next to his bedroom, so that I would be in his sight every day. When he led me into this room, my heart grew colder by half. Did the heavens want to cut off my way of life? How could I escape like this? What I didn't expect was that, in order to monitor him, Qi required me to serve him day and night, not leaving his sight for even a single step. I had no choice but to pray every day that the female lead would appear soon according to the plot in the book. Perhaps because my prayer was too sincere, after 3 days of enduring by Qi side, there was finally a change. That day, when I followed him through the garden, I accidentally glanced at the group of new servants led by the housekeeper. A woman was leading the group of new recruits, her eyes filled with hatred, coldly staring straight at Qi. That gaze made me shiver in surprise. Disguising herself as a servant, bearing a deep grudge against Qi? Wasn't this exactly how the female lead appeared in the original story? The plot really did not disappoint me. Lin Shiwei finally arrived. The housekeeper assigned tasks to the new group of people one by one. Because Lin Shiwei's beauty was outstanding, she was immediately assigned to Qi courtyard to take care of his daily life. This was originally an interesting story. The male and female leads were in front of me every day. Wouldn't I get to see so many good plays? But the joy didn't last long. I immediately remembered a problem. According to the plot, Qi would only need less than 2 days to realize Lin Shiwei's true identity. At that time, my role would completely lose its value. At that time, how would I keep my life? Thinking of this, I couldn't help but regret this book Transmigration. Why did everyone who transmigrated into books become the female lead? Even if they weren't the female lead, they were either rich or powerful evil young ladies. Yet I transmigrated into a supporting role, with nothing else but a pretty face. Since coming to this world, every step has been like walking on a tightrope, life always hanging in the balance. Every minute and every second in the Qi Wangfu, I was like someone walking on a precipice, my heart hanging in the air, never at peace. Lin Shiwei, after the pain of the extermination of her family, had already carved her hatred for Qi into her bones. According to the plot, the second day after she entered the mansion, Lin Shiwei would take advantage of the moment when she was serving tea to Qi, hiding a dagger in her sleeve to attack. I still couldn't leave this hellish place, so I could only stand by as an audience, intending to watch the dramatic developments. But who would have thought that right when Lin Shiwei finished making the tea and was about to bring it over, Qi gaze would slowly shift to me, the harmless bystander. "This tea, you bring it to this prince." I, who had just been standing by as an eavesdropper with a leisurely attitude like I was about to peel melon seeds, immediately froze in place. Wait, why did it become me? What does it have to do with a bystander like me? Lamb Hi-Fi also did not expect things to turn out like this. Her expression instantly froze. The person under the eaves couldn't help but lower his head. I couldn't help but reluctantly hold the tea tray, slowly walking towards him. When passing by Lin Shiwei, I caught a glimpse of her hand hurriedly covering the dagger in her sleeve, her eyes filled with hatred. Obviously, her assassination plan couldn't end so easily. Sure enough, throughout the entire day, she kept looking for opportunities. Serving Qi Qingxi a meal, helping Qi Qingxi change clothes, preparing bath water for Qi Qingxi to bathe. She showed too much initiative, too much so that Qi Qingxi also noticed something was wrong. I was both nervous and secretly happy, thinking that in just a moment, Qi Qingxi would expose her identity, and I could breathe a sigh of relief. But no, he just lifted the long sword, placed it horizontally in front of Lin Shiwei, who was about to step forward to help him undress. His tone was cold as ice. This king is not interested in women who take the initiative. You are not someone who can dream of me. Get lost. Me. Male lead, didn't you just treat the female lead coldly? It's fine if Lin Shiwei was rejected, but I, the supporting role, haven't even had time to find a way out. Are you trying to change the script? Unexpectedly, things would turn out this way. Lin Shiwei and I were both stunned on the spot. The male lead was still a bit narcissistic? Lin Shiwei, who had never suffered such humiliation before, had red eyes and turned around to run straight out. I don't dare to dream about the prince either, so I'll leave too. In order to avoid the risk of being alone with him in this sensitive situation, I immediately turned around and was about to run after Lin Shiwei. But before I could take a step, Qi Qingxi's low voice rang out, I let you go? Me? If I don't let you go, what else can I do? Come here. A domineering tone came from behind. Me? I don't want to. I don't need to. I won't do it. While I was still struggling with my thoughts, Qi Qingxi had already stepped forward, grabbed me like a chicken, and carried me to the side of the bathtub. I really couldn't understand, what kind of mentality did the ancients have that they liked having someone sit next to them while bathing? Thinking back, I wasn't the female lead, how could I have a spark of affection with the male lead? Suddenly I felt that my worries just now were ridiculous. So I obediently sat down next to the tub, diligently treating his back like a washboard, scrubbing with so much force that I almost peeled off a few layers of skin. From the front, his cold voice suddenly rang out, in the Lin mansion, you also take care of others like this? This servant often does heavy work, my hand strength is a bit too strong. I answered without changing my expression. Really? He didn't refute, nor did he seem angry, he just glanced at my smooth white hands, his eyes were sharp but he didn't say anything more. Just by looking at it, he could tell that these hands did not belong to someone who did heavy work. My role in the original work was at most serving tea, serving water, or combing hair. But even though Qi Qingxi was as perceptive as he was, he didn't expose me. At that moment, I even thought, this male lead seems to be too patient with me. Patient, with a supporting role? Male lead, there's something wrong with you. Thinking back, Qi Qingxi's patience with me didn't seem to have only happened once. With his sickly personality, when he was purging the Lin mansion, the fact that he discovered a survivor like me should have been enough for him to swing his sword and send me to heaven. As for finding Lin Shiwei, without me, he would have just had to put in a little more effort. But he didn't do that. A few days ago, when he discovered that I was planning to follow Yuan Yi out of the mansion, not only was I not punished, but I even lived happily under his eyes every day. This really surprised me. Suddenly, I felt that this male lead didn't seem to be completely like the cruel sickly image described in the book. But as the story progresses, later Qi Qingxi will kill his entire family, usurp the throne, and become emperor. With such a ruthless and untrustworthy person, the fact that he didn't touch me now didn't mean that I was safe by his side. Before Lin Shiwei's identity was exposed, I had to find a way to escape. I walked out of Qi Qingxi's room, thinking as I walked, wondering when Lin Shiwei would choose to make a move. While I was deep in thought, I suddenly heard a shrill cry coming from the courtyard.
Oh no!
It's on fire! Turning my head to look back, I saw that the originally peaceful courtyard was now engulfed in a sea of blazing fire. The entire courtyard immediately fell into chaos, everyone's attention focused on putting out the fire. In the midst of the chaos, a white shadow passed by, sneaking into Qi Qingxi's room. I immediately recognized that figure. I had seen her countless times throughout the day. Who else could it be but Lin Shiwei? Wasn't this a lure the tiger away from the mountain plan? Using the fire to attract everyone's attention, creating an opportunity to sneak into the room to assassinate Qi Qingxi. The fire in the courtyard grew bigger and bigger, half of the servants in the mansion had come to put out the fire. I stood still, staring at the raging fire, wondering whether I should take advantage of the chaos to escape or not. I had just lifted my foot, and before I could take a step, I suddenly felt someone grab my wrist from behind. Turning around, in front of me was Qi Qingxi. He had appeared behind me at some point, his eyes cold and sharp. Wait, isn't he in the room? I stared at Qi Qingxi, completely unable to understand the situation before my eyes. Wasn't he in the room with Lin Shiwei? Then where was Lin Shiwei? Qi Qingxi held my hand tightly, his eyes stern, his voice full of questioning. Did you light this fire? His grip was very strong, his tone was firm. Did this king allow you to leave? Me. What did he misunderstand? Did he think I deliberately lit this fire to escape from the Qi Wangfu? It seems like I just saw someone enter the room. I quickly pointed towards the room, intending to remind him. Someone was trying to assassinate him, shouldn't his attention be on the person in the room? Yet he still calmly and leisurely faced me, not in the least bit hasty. Just a woman who takes the initiative to flatter, this king has seen that kind of person many times. Qi Qingxi frowned, his eyes filled with disdain. Me? Was this a failed assassination attempt? Turning around, I saw Lin Shiwei slowly walking out of the room with her head down. Perhaps she had not found an opportunity to strike. Her eyes were downcast, but there was still intense hatred in the depths of her eyes. When she reached Qi Qingxi, she suddenly pulled out a dagger from her sleeve and stabbed straight at him. Her action was unexpected, but Qi Qingxi's reaction was even faster. He just leaned to the side, easily dodging. A clang sound rang out, and the dagger in Lin Shiwei's hand fell to the ground. I stood by and witnessed the entire scene, completely dumbfounded. Was this an assassination attempt? How could it be so blatant? Do you think any royal prince doesn't know some martial arts for self-defense? Not to mention this is Qi Qingxi, someone who has been rolling around in the mud, climbing from danger to where he is today. Actually, if I were Lin Shiwei, when I failed in the chaos just now, I would have stopped and waited for another opportunity. But I also understand that even if her identity is exposed, she doesn't have to worry about losing her life. After all, she is the female lead, carrying a protective aura. Qi Qingxi slowly walked towards Lin Shiwei, who was lying on the ground, step by step, cold as the winter wind. You and Minister Lin, indeed have some similarities. Lin Shiwei's face paled a few shades. Not only her, my heart also skipped a beat. Was this matter exposed? At that moment, I suddenly felt scared for myself. Lin Shiwei was the female lead, no matter what, I knew she wouldn't die. As for me, a supporting character that the book didn't even bother to mention, how she would die, I had no idea at all. Lin Shiwei? Qi Qingxi looked closely at her face, slowly coming to a conclusion. Having been exposed, Lin Shiwei didn't bother to continue pretending. She stood up from the ground, picked up the dagger, and then rushed straight towards him. You must return the lives of the hundreds of Lin family members. I stood to the side and watched, secretly sweating for her. Having failed so many times, why didn't she learn and raise her intelligence a little? At this time, the male lead didn't even love her. If he kept repeating this action in front of a man who didn't love him, wouldn't he be courting his own death? According to the plot, after her identity was exposed, Lin Shiwei would be imprisoned in the mansion by Qi Qingxi, starting the two of them's love and hate intertwined days. Sure enough, Qi Qingxi also ordered her to be imprisoned. But the strange thing was that he didn't bother to do it himself. He called the guards over and coldly ordered her to be taken away, without any hesitation. When she was dragged away, he even reached out to gently wipe the spot where she almost stabbed him just now. I knew that the male lead Qi Qingxi had a very serious cleanliness problem, but this usually only happened to outsiders. Why was he doing it to the female lead now? I looked at Qi Qingxi, my eyes gradually becoming strange. Why did I feel that this male lead was becoming more and more out of character? Qi Qingxi is increasingly showing himself to be inappropriate, not only because his attitude towards the female lead is completely different from the description in the book. According to the plot, the first time they met, the male lead was surprised by the female lead's beauty, so he forgave her even though she had assassinated him. But now, looking at the way Qi Qingxi always looked at Lin Shiwei with a face full of disgust, where did his infatuation come from? Lin Shiwei had already appeared in the mansion, so keeping me would no longer have any meaning. I had mentally prepared myself, waiting for Qi Qingxi to finish dealing with Lin Shiwei before conveniently dealing with me. Unexpectedly, after leisurely wiping my hands, he turned to look at me, indifferently saying, "You are much calmer and more rational than that idiot." Me? So what? Apart from knowing that Lin Shiwei would come, what else do you know? He stepped closer, his icy fingertips holding my chin, his eyes carefully examining my face. That gaze made me feel uncomfortable down to every pore. This is the look he should be giving the female lead. Why is he looking at me? What you know, tell me everything. He continued to press. As a book transmigrator, what I know is a lot. Your Highness is a dragon among humans. In the future he will definitely ascend the throne as emperor. I tried to take a deep breath, keeping myself calm, not letting his masculine beauty shake me. He seemed a bit surprised by the certainty in my words. His eyes looked at me for a few more seconds, the corners of his lips suddenly curved up. He was already handsome. Now that he smiled, his whole face seemed to light up, to the point that I was stunned, unable to react. Having vision, knowing how to stay calm, and being flexible, I like him. His warm breath blew on my face, his low voice like a mist lingering around my ears. I was startled by him, my mind was buzzing. Like what? Is it admiration or romantic feelings? As if he knew the doubt in my eyes, his cold lips suddenly brushed across my forehead gently. I was struck by lightning, almost jumping up. Male lead, wake up. I'm just a supporting character, not the female lead. He seemed afraid of scaring me, so he didn't do anything too outrageous. Go back to your room and rest early. He turned and left, leaving me standing stiffly in place, walking into the room alone. During the days at the Chiwang mansion, my mind was filled with all sorts of thoughts. I thought of ways to escape, ways to survive, and even imagined all sorts of ways I would die. But there was one thing I didn't expect. Qi Qingxi would pay a little attention to me. His sudden words stirred my mind, making me confused and restless. That night, I couldn't sleep all night. The next morning, when I opened my eyes, Yuan Yi had entered my room without me knowing. Do you want to go out and play? I see you're bored staying in the mansion all day. How about going for a walk with me? As soon as he saw me wake up, he leaned his face close to mine. Startled by the magnified face before my eyes, I grabbed the jade pillow beside me and without thinking, threw it at him. What are you doing in my room? Get out! Get out! Entering the ladies' room without knocking? My loud noise attracted Chi-Ching-Shi in the next room. He opened the door and walked in, his eyes swept around, immediately stopping on Yuan Yi. The first thing he did was to take off the white robe on my body, covering me from head to toe, not revealing anything. Me. Is the squeamishness recurring? He turned his face coldly, his voice as icy as ice. Get out. Yuan Yi was bewildered. What if I only entered a maid's room? He still didn't understand what crime he had committed, his eyes were fixed on the robe covering me. His eyes were so wide that they seemed about to fall out. Perhaps he didn't expect that someone with a serious cleanliness problem like Chi-Ching-Shi would use his own robe to cover a maid. He was stunned for a long time, then pointed at Chi-Ching-Shi, his face full of disbelief. You. Don't blame me for not reminding you, you will be sitting on the throne in the future. Nguyen Dike impliedly reminded. As Chi-Ching-Shi's ally on the path to power, he wanted to imply that if Chi-Ching-Shi became emperor, the empress would definitely have to be someone of noble birth commensurate with his status in Ningguo. A small maid like me, of course, was not qualified. But Chi-Ching-Shi didn't bother to pay attention to what he said, calmly replying, How noble do you think I am? Nguyen Dike, knowing his painful past, could only keep silent upon hearing that question. This king feels, he seemed to want to say my name, but then suddenly realized that he didn't even know my name. To cover up his confusion, he coughed lightly, then forcefully gave me a name. This king finds Xiao Jing cold, intelligent, calm, truly has the demeanor of a noble person. Xiao Jing? Who came up with this name so casually? It sure fits my identity as a Jia Road crowd. Nguyen Dike seemed to want to say something more, but as soon as the words reached his mouth, he was bluntly interrupted by Chi-Ching-Shi and chased him out. The door was closed tightly. He turned to look at me, his eyes became unusually gentle. Staying in the mansion is boring, do you want to go out for a walk? Although I still couldn't understand his sudden change in heart, but hearing that there was a chance to go out and breathe, I was still extremely excited, so I nodded vigorously. Tonight is the Lantern Festival, the streets are bustling, this prince will take you out to see. His voice was unbelievably gentle, making my mind even more confused. He wouldn't really like me, would he? Why? Just because I was calm in the face of adversity? I couldn't guess what he was thinking. Chi-Ching-Shi didn't explain anything further. That night, he really had the carriage prepared and took me out. At the night market, he bought a lot of lanterns for me, not forgetting to ask, which kind of lantern do you like the most? I like Kongming lanterns. I replied. Why? He wondered. Because Kongming lanterns can fly up to the sky, the most free. I replied. It seemed like he understood the meaning in my words. After a moment of silence, he suddenly grabbed my hand, his voice low and resounding, I will not let you regret this short-lived bond. His words seemed to carry a layer of deep emotion, leaving me stunned. I am not the female lead, nor do I have the aura of a main character. Why is he so serious with me? I couldn't figure it out. After some hesitation, I could only conclude, perhaps because the path to power is too dangerous, he needs a companion who is intelligent, calm, and doesn't cause trouble, who can stand by his side. After all, on the path to fighting for imperial power, if one wrong step is taken, there will be no turning back. The other princes more or less guessed Chi-Ching-Shi's ambition. According to the plot, right after the Lantern Festival, Chi-Ching-Shi will encounter a great disaster. He is ambushed on the road and almost loses his life. In the original story, the female lead Lin Shiwei accompanies him on the trip and uses her medical skills to save his life. This is also an opportunity for the two of them to develop their feelings quickly. But now, after her identity was exposed, Lin Shiwei is imprisoned in a dungeon. Let alone developing feelings, Qi Qingxi doesn't even bother to glance at her. In this situation, if the incident of the accident really happened, I don't know if Qi Qingxi's ending would change. And the matters of the male and female leads originally had nothing to do with a supporting role like me. If Qi Qingxi died in an accident, then that would be even better. I would also be freed from this life of bondage. But these past few days, it seemed like I was possessed by an evil spirit. His words from the day before kept echoing in my head. From the room next door, footsteps echoed as he changed his clothes and left the room. I heard the sound of his shoes stepping on the dry branches in the yard, each step getting further away. My heart couldn't help but be torn apart. When he was about to leave the yard, I couldn't help but rush out the door, running straight towards him. Qi Qingxi, can you not go out today? He stopped, turned his head to look at me, his eyes clearly showing misunderstanding. Xiao Jing is afraid that one day he won't see me? Me? What does that have to do with anything? He smiled, a smile as bright as the spring sunshine. Don't worry, you don't need to wait a day, I'll be back in half a day. With that, he turned around and strode out of the courtyard. I stood there watching his back gradually fade away, my heart in turmoil. Every moment I had spent with him in the past few days rushed back into my mind like a rewind film, the times he spoke to me in a gentle tone, the times he gave in to me, the smile that made people's hearts flutter, and the determined gaze when he held my hand and chose me. How could I let a fictional character stir my heart like this? After much deliberation, I finally couldn't hold it in any longer and immediately ran towards his carriage. When he arrived at Chungting Cliff, the original location where Qi Qingxi had his accident, his carriage had just passed under a wine house. This was exactly the place described in the book. A bad feeling rose in my heart, and I shouted at the top of my lungs, Qi Qingxi. He stuck his head out from the carriage, and saw me with disheveled hair, running and panting. He paused, then the corners of his lips curled up into a faint smile. He pulled the curtain of the carriage, seemingly intending to get out of the carriage. No! I shouted until my voice was hoarse, wanting to stop him, but the originally sturdy wine house still collapsed. I was horrified at the scene before me, my face pale and bloodless. Right under my horrified gaze, Qi Qingxi suddenly jumped out of the carriage, and before the wine house collapsed, he flew straight towards me. He gently hugged me, carried me through the rubble, and all the way back to the royal palace. When we returned to the courtyard, I followed behind him, full of anxiety, secretly observing his expression as we walked. Normally, for someone like me who could accurately predict the moment of his danger, he would think I was a spy. Otherwise, how could I have understood the enemy's plan so clearly? However, Qi Qingxi didn't seem to have any suspicions. On the contrary, on the way back, the corners of his lips always held a smile, even a little happy. When he returned to his room, that smile still hadn't faded. He asked, "Do you know what will happen today?" I lowered my head, not denying it. "You rushed here so quickly, because you were worried about me?" He asked again. Was this the main point? Having just gone through such a dangerous situation, shouldn't he care who wanted to kill him? Or was it that he had grown up with such things, so he found it normal? "I'm very happy." He suddenly gently bent down, lightly kissed my forehead. "Choosing you was indeed the right choice." At this moment, everything in my head was in a mess. Something was wrong, everything had gone astray. After that time, Qi Qingxi treated me even better. He asked and cared about me every little thing, his words and actions were filled with tenderness, his eyes looked like they could flow with water. I knew everything was wrong now, but I couldn't control my greed, and was immersed in the kindness of a fictional character. Facing him, I didn't know how to refuse. Meanwhile, his fight for the throne was still secretly going on. The third month after I entered the palace, during a hunting session of the crown prince at the royal hunting grounds, his horse suddenly panicked, causing him to fall off his horse and become paralyzed in both legs. A person with a disability, of course, could not become the future king. The crown prince was deposed, and Emperor Ning appointed the third prince, the son of imperial noble consort Qi, to replace him. But the third prince was not a good person. Less than a month after his enthronement, there were already rumors of him accepting bribes, going to and from brothels, and oppressing the common people. As expected, the third prince was also deposed. Then, it was the turn of the fourth and fifth princes. But both of them were also eliminated one by one for different reasons. Under Emperor Ning's knee were 6 sons. At this time the only one who was worthy and had real power was Qi Qingxi. Perhaps because of his guilt for listening to Minister Lin's instigation and ordering the killing of Qi Qingxi's mother and grandfather in the past, Emperor Ning had always hesitated to make him crown prince, afraid that he would harbor a grudge in his heart. But before he could make a final decision, Ningguo spread bad news. Emperor Ning had passed away due to a serious illness. Outsiders did not know the reason, but I knew clearly that from the prince's misfortunes to Emperor Ning's death, it was all Qi Qingxi's doing. If he had not used such tricks, how could he have ascended to the throne? After the death of the late emperor, the other princes also met tragic ends one after another. The one who had forced Qi Qingxi to eat leftovers, the deposed crown prince, went out to meet an assassin, and was shot to death miserably. Then came the second prince, the third prince, each of them had equally tragic ends. In fact, when the princes met with misfortune one after another, all the officials in the court secretly understood that they could not be separated from Qi Qingxi. But no one dared to complain. To them, it did not matter who became king. What mattered was, as long as that person could make Ningguo powerful, then he would be the most worthy emperor. On the day Qi Qingxi ascended the throne, auspicious clouds covered the sky, and all the civil and military officials bowed their heads in homage. He ordered someone to bring the splendid phoenix robe to my palace, and a group of maids patiently waited to help me change. I stared blankly at the phoenix robe held in the maidservant's hands like a treasure, intending to reach out to take it. But the moment I touched it, a bright white light suddenly emitted from the phoenix robe, so bright that I couldn't open my eyes. I raised my hand to block it, but that light seemed to have a spirit, bouncing off the phoenix robe, directly hitting my forehead. A headache came, as if my brain was about to explode. In the dim light, I vaguely saw Qi Qingxi running towards me. He ran very fast, his appearance was hurried as if he was afraid of losing something, his eyes were panicked like never before. The sunlight penetrated through the window bars, shining down on me. In that halo, I felt my body gradually disintegrating. The day I had been waiting for since coming to this world, had finally arrived. But why did it come when everything was over, when staying or leaving was no longer important to me? Xiao Jing! Qi Qingxi called my name, a heart-wrenching call, filled with pain and despair. His face was filled with fear and anxiety, as if he had known this would happen. I didn't understand how an ancient person like him, when he saw me, a living person of flesh and blood, gradually disappearing before his eyes, could remain so calm. Until I almost completely disappeared, I saw him rush to my side, grabbing my hand. His hand, like my body, was also gradually fading away, as if merging into the light. Me? Is he hiding something from me? Before I could understand what was happening, I had completely disappeared in that strange white light. When I woke up, I was back in the modern house where I had lived for 23 years. Qi Qingxi. I reached out as if to hold on to something, but only grabbed empty space. My mother walked in from outside and lightly tapped my head. "Who are you calling? What are you daydreaming about?" The familiar voice made me pause. I had really returned. But what about Qi Qingxi? Before I disappeared, I clearly saw him and I become transparent. My mother kept nagging in my ear, "Mom tells you, you're not a kid anymore, you have to find a boyfriend. I've told you so many times but you don't pay attention. This time I had to choose very carefully to find the perfect person for you. You must go meet this person." "Mom, I was about to refuse when my mother threw a photo in front of me. "Here, look, isn't he handsome?" I was stunned looking at the face in the photo, my mind suddenly exploded. Grabbing the photo, I immediately changed my attitude, beaming, "Mom, I'm going." "What time tomorrow? Which restaurant? Didn't I just say I wasn't going?" My mother laughed at me. "Now you've changed your mind," I replied, throwing the sentence back and rushing upstairs to prepare my dress for tomorrow's date. The next day, I woke up very early. I put on beautiful makeup, chose a really outstanding long dress, and prepared everything. Even though there was still an hour before the appointment, I arrived at the restaurant ahead of time. Unexpectedly, when I arrived, someone was already waiting for me at the table. Seeing that familiar face, all the chaos in my heart since leaving that world suddenly calmed down. I walked step by step towards him, holding out my hand. "Hello, I'm Hua Tran." The man sitting at the table raised his head and grabbed my hand, "Chi Ching Shi." His low voice rang out, his hand gripped mine tightly, bit by bit, never letting go. Side story ****Chi Ching Shi Actually, from the first time I met Xiao Jing, I had guessed that she was a time traveler. She carried a bulky luggage, and wore an unusually clean maid's outfit. Everything about her seemed like she had known that the day the Lin mansion would be purged would come. Aside from transmigrating through a book, I didn't think a small maid could predict such a thing. The fact that I used her skirt to wipe the blood was also intentional. I just wanted to make sure if she was really dead or just pretending to be dead. Until I smelled the distinct scent of tomatoes on her neck, I understood everything. But clearly, she didn't know the times I secretly tested her. The way she pretended to be dead was very serious, but she couldn't help but sneeze right in front of me, making that scene both funny and a little cute. The reason why I brought Xiao Jing back to the royal palace was probably because she and I came from the same world. When I couldn't go back, her appearance, who had also transmigrated like me, was like a comfort, and a small corner of my heart suddenly became warm. Later, when she said that Lin Shiwei would come looking for me, I became even more certain of her identity. I loved her, perhaps because she was too similar to me. Calm, composed, and from the same place. In her, I saw a part of myself. My instincts told me that I must protect her, so that she could live peacefully in this chaotic world. Since I met her, there had never been any other woman in my eyes. I had never told Xiao Jing about my true identity, because I had always secretly tested her. Tested whether she was really a transmigrator, and tested her feelings for me. I knew clearly about the collapse of the tavern. But I still went there. And sure enough, Xiao Jing rushed over. In her confused eyes, I saw her love for me. Tu Ken was very smart, but she didn't expect that, besides me, Nguyen Dike was also a transmigrator. Ever since Nguyen Dike first came to this world, I realized that. That was also the reason why Nguyen Dike in this world was completely different from the character in the book. What happened in Nin Kwok, all of it was within my calculations. The only thing I didn't expect was that, when I was ready to live forever with Tu Can in the book world, she and I unexpectedly returned to the real world. Luckily, when we returned, she and I were still able to meet again. And that miraculous fate was arranged during a blind date. Happy ending. After the blind date with Chi Ching-shi, without discussing it with the family, he and I immediately went to register our marriage that same day. When we got home, my mother was surprised enough to see him, but when she saw the red book in both of our hands, she was so stunned that she was speechless. "Daughter, I know that people often get married quickly these days, but do you need to be in such a hurry?" she said while staring at the red book. Understanding her worries, I intimately put my arm around her and gently comforted her. Mom, this is not a flash marriage. He and I have known each other for a long time. We are sure of our choice. Happiness had just begun. What? My mother's eyes widened in surprise, her face full of questions. I smiled, not bothering to explain, pulling Chi-Ching-shi's hand upstairs, leaving only one sentence. Mom, starting today I will move out. Upstairs, I packed up several large suitcases, and as soon as I pulled them down, I saw my mother still standing there, her face still in shock. Dear mother-in-law, please rest assured, I will never let down Xiaojing. Before leaving, Chi-Ching-shi politely promised my mother. Xiaojing? My mother was even more bewildered. Chi-Ching-shi just smiled slightly, not saying another word. He helped me load my luggage into the car, then drove straight to his private villa. When we arrived, as soon as the luggage was brought in, he suddenly pressed me against the door, bent down, and placed his gentle lips on mine. Wife, congratulations on our wedding. In this life, I will never let down the trust one have made in meeting you. Congratulations on our wedding. I looked into his eyes filled with love, and smiled sweetly. End.